Hello, everyone. So I thought that I'd be able to do it in this live in the Facebook event, but actually it wouldn't allow me to go live. It only allowed me to post videos or pictures. So I've popped over to my business page. So hopefully you guys will find me on here. I just posted a link in the event. And I think I'm going to go ahead and also just quickly post in my Deserving Women group. For many of you know of my Deserving Women group are in there. Oh, it won't let me do both at once. Okay, well here, I'm on here. Hopefully you guys will be able to find me. I will post the video in the event as well for those of you who didn't make it on live. So let me introduce myself. Hello everyone, I'm Coach Tiffany. I am an RN and, oh, some people are hopping on. Hello, hello. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Coach Tiffany. I am an RN and integrative coach. I help women who are tired of just like worrying about food, struggling with it, obsessing about it, wasting precious mental and emotional energy, trying to control or feeling frustrated or having shame around their relationship with food. So I help women who are in that position to learn some intuitive eating principles and heal their relationship with food so they can have satisfaction. Ah, satisfaction, right? And freedom and balance in their relationship with food. So what does that look like? So satisfaction, if you can hear me, if you're on live, just post that you can hear me loud and clear. Hopefully these headphones tend to make the sound quality better, but sometimes the volume can be a little low. So what does satisfaction and freedom and balance really look like in our relationship with food? It really looks like being able to connect with and listen to our bodies and respond to our bodies in a pretty timely manner, right? So that might look like one day it might look like eating, salad and having fish and eating for nourishment. And the next day it might look like enjoying cheese and chocolate after dinner, like my husband and I did last night. I had a 3-day speaking conference that I attended this weekend, and I had things planned after the events. So I didn't get a chance to eat a lot this weekend. So after I came home last night, pretty late last night, I had some salmon and some broccoli, and it was pretty good. I was still actually hungry and really craving something very, salty and satisfying. So cheese and Honey Mama's chocolate really did the trick. It was delicious. My husband went to New Seasons for me and got me some like just really high quality French and Italian cheese, and then a local creamery called Cascade Creamery, and some of their cheese. So anyway, back to the task at hand. Today I'm going to share a little bit about intuitive eating and what that means and what that looks like, and then I'll talk about my fall hybrid coaching program. I'm going to try to keep it short. I know some people have places to be after this. If you have any questions, feel free to type it into the comments, or if you're just feeling like it's a private question, feel free to private message me or email me. My email is tiffany@coachtiffanyrn.com if you want. That's the HIPAA compliant route to talk with me further. So what does intuitive eating mean? Well, first I want to have you all think a little bit about what your experience with food and dieting has been. So as a child, were you encouraged to try different foods and eat the things that were satisfying and tasty to you? Were you encouraged to eat when you were hungry and to be done eating when you were full? Or was it, you eat what's on your plate, you eat, your vegetables, you don't get dessert if you don't eat, the spinach, whatever it is, 3 more bites? Was it that kind of messaging? What messaging did you get? Was it to encourage you to listen to the signals that your body's giving you, or was it to encourage you to do something that you should do? So for me as a child, I was encouraged to eat my vegetables, which were usually canned and overcooked, so they weren't very tasty to me. And I was also encouraged to eat more bites of things that my parents felt like were healthy, right? And then as I got older and started to gain weight, as grow bigger as children do, and young girls actually tend to increase in weight significantly between, in the kind of prepubescent phase. A lot of girls gain up to 25 pounds. So during that period, I was encouraged to diet. So as a child, I'd been encouraged to eat more than I wanted, and a lot of times things I didn't want to eat. And then as a young woman, I was encouraged to eat less, and especially eat less of the things I did enjoy. And at my house, we were really doing the all or nothing thing. So we were eating carrots or like the whole cake, right? So so I really got a distaste for just eating plain carrots. To this day, I will like cut them up. They have to be cut up or like made, special somehow, than just like chomping on a large carrot. So anyway, and of course, chocolate cake to me is delicious. I love it. But I'm at a place in my life where I don't feel like I've been deprived of it anymore. So intuitive eating is really about becoming more attuned or more aware to the messages and the signals that our bodies are giving us. So that's everything from our hunger signals. By the way, I have a free hunger scale. If you haven't received it, it's kind of like my funny take on the hunger scale. It's just a tool that you can use to start to listen to, oh, how hungry am I getting? And if I'm really hungry, then am I eating to overfull, right? Or if I'm not really hungry, what else is going on that I feel like I want to eat right now? So anyway, so as a child, as a young adult, I was taught to repress that my appetite wasn't a good thing, and that satisfaction wasn't important when it came to food, that it was more important to control my weight. So I want to ask you guys, those of you who are on today, to think about like if you started dieting or restricting food, at what age was that? Were you even fully developed? Like, did you even have your brain development? Were you even in a phase where you could even understand exactly what's going on? Somebody commented, finish what's on your plate. Yeah, right. Starving children in Africa. How many people have heard that phrase, right? So many times. And we're made to feel guilty if we don't eat all of our food. But I feel like as women, we get this really strong conflicting messages. You should be eating everything on your plate, but also you shouldn't be eating too much. So which is it? What's too much? What is too much? So we get a lot of really conflicting messages, and we are brought away from our inherent signals, attunement to our body. We have inherent signals, and then we have an attunement when we're babies. So babies cry when they're hungry, and they stop eating when they're full. Have you ever tried to like make a baby take a little more of a bottle, and they're like, no, and you're like, there's just a little bit left, and they do not want it. They're not going to do it. And if you push it, sometimes they'll like take it in their mouth and they'll just spit it out, right? So babies have that very strongly. And then we, unfortunately, our culture, we disrupt that. So the attunement or the awareness, and then the building of the trust that we're going to take care of that message or signal that we're being given. So intuitive eating includes getting reconnected to our bodies, listening for those signals, and attending to those signals. It includes building trust with our bodies, and it includes giving ourselves unconditional permission to eat. And this is something that really blew my mind when I learned about it. And I was like, what would that even look like? So if you're hungry, it looks like absolutely taking care of that hunger. It looks like making sure that you have food available to you whenever you're going to need it. So, for example, I mentioned I was at the speaking conference all weekend, and the first day I knew I was going to be busy. I decided I was going to eat at a restaurant nearby for lunch. So I looked up on the map where it was nearby, and there happened to be a Freshie nearby, which they have salads and they have curries and rice bowls and things that tend to be fairly not very processed and fairly accessible for those of us who have food allergies. So I decided in advance that I was going to be going there. And then I had plans for dinner after. And again, I looked at the menu in advance, and I had a snack of some nuts in my bag. It was actually like macadamia nuts and pistachios and walnuts, and it was so satisfying. So, making sure that we have access to food and that we are feeding ourselves. But it also looked like, the Freshie experience wasn't that great because they didn't actually have the ingredient list. So I did the best I could in that moment, and I had something that was really satisfying and tasty. But later, I felt kind of puffy and a little bit groggy. I didn't feel awesome. So the next day I decided to bring a salad with me and then made an intention to eat, something specific when I got home. Oh, hi, Carrie's on. So today I'm talking about what does intuitive eating look like and what does healing your relationship look like. And then I'm going to go into the details of my fall coaching program that I'm so excited about. I'll talk about the details, the structure of that, and the pricing. That way anybody who's interested has that information. And then, of course, I'll be letting you know how to follow up with me if you are interested in having a one-on-one conversation or signing up for the program. All right, so back to intuitive eating. So again, the principles of intuitive eating are giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. They are becoming more aware of those inherent signals that we've had since we were children, but that we were pulled away from. And then it is, things like rejecting dieting culture and really taking the locus of control from out here. So all the shoulds, like finish your plate, or you should only eat spinach, or you shouldn't eat fat, or you shouldn't eat carbs, or whatever the shoulds are around eating for you. So that's kind of looking at the food police in your brain. What are the messages that you, or the ideas that you have about food that kind of sneak in and you don't really realize that you're restricting maybe, or you aren't really allowing yourself to be fully satisfied in your relationship with food. It's also looking at embracing satisfaction as an important piece of your food relationship. So what does satisfaction look like? Well, it looks like eating in a way that you don't feel hungry all the time, right? So satiety, so the signals that, yes, I got enough to eat. And that a lot of times means like eating things that have high quality fat in them and protein and these things, right? It also means feeling less stress and anxiety about your relationship with food. So satisfaction in that you feel good about your relationship with food. It means eating things that are tasty and delicious and enjoying them. It means looking at when is something worth it and when isn't it. So, for me, like a stale cupcake at a birthday party, like a 3-year-old birthday party, that's not worth it. But a gluten-free chocolate hazelnut cupcake from Kira's when I'm celebrating something with my family or it's a birthday, totally worth it, like worth every bite. If you don't know about Kira's, if you have food intolerances or anyone in your life does, they are amazing. They're gluten-free, 100% gluten-free bakery in Lake Oswego. They also have things that are vegan, and they have, so, egg-free if you have an egg allergy, or if you're vegan or a vegetarian and you don't want to eat eggs. They have all of the kind of food allergens listed for each item. So great. Oh, they're the best. Anyway, and their cupcakes are so good that Kira actually won Cupcake Wars with her gluten-free cupcakes against regular cupcakes. So it's delicious. I'm really glad it's in Lake Oswego. It's a half an hour away. I have to really want it to go there. But anyway, I'm really grateful to live in a place where I have access to those foods. So back to, principles of intuitive eating, food satisfaction, and then there is an element of eating for nourishment, right? So honoring your body through eating nourishing food. And for a lot of my clients, that simply looks like making sure that we're getting in high quality meals multiple times a day. It's amazing to me how challenging it is for us to feed ourselves. We have to eat multiple times a day, every day for our entire life. And yet we don't have good systems in place to make sure that we're getting in good quality, delicious food regularly. I personally feel like if we were just taught to do that when we were children, I actually have had some clients that do have the habit of cooking and meal prep and having food in their house. And it seems like adopting the intuitive eating principles were so much smoother for them because they already had that they could lean on. And for my clients that don't, we look at where are we going to invest the time or the money into making sure that you have that quality food available at all times. So you don't get to that point where you're so over hungry that you just go through the drive-through, right? Or you're so hungry that you grab the first thing that's available, like a bag of chips. So one of the ways I do that, I encourage a lot of people to look at food delivery services. And there's one here in Portland that I really love and I've used personally. It's called No Mess Chef. And when I get really busy, I use that service. I order their food. They have regular delicious meals that are, they're brought, the ingredients are got are purchased from local farms, and they create the meals and bring them to your home already ready to go in a glass container. So all you have to do is put it in the oven or the microwave and eat it. It's delicious. They have vegetarian options, they have regular, they have paleo options. So for me, even though I don't adhere strictly to paleo because of my food intolerances, paleo, there's no gluten involved, and there, in general, I don't have to worry about ingredients if it's paleo. And there's a lot of veggies and meat, which I love, and also I feel like really nourish me. So I eat their paleo meals, and then I supplement with other things like rice or, whatever else it is. Gluten-free cupcakes from Kira's. So that's a little bit about intuitive eating. I want to go back to, why do we want to look at using intuitive eating in our relationship with food? Well, again, so many of us were pulled away from listening to our signals, or our body signals. So that's called attunement with our body, when we were kids and young women, or young men, as the case may be. And so we often were encouraged to diet if we gained weight. So dieting, a lot of people believe that dieting works because they went on a diet and lost weight. So who out there, just thinking about it, like, how many of you have been on a diet and you lost weight and it worked until it didn't anymore, right? So then once it doesn't anymore, what happens? We kind of fall off the wagon and the pendulum swings and we eat all the things. But there's actually a physiological reason for that. Well, a lot of times we have shame then, and we blame ourselves, and we just feel like, oh, I don't have any willpower. There's something wrong with me. The diet works, but I don't work. So, right. So the diet works, but I'm broken. But actually, diets are inherently broken. If diets were if diets had to go through the same FDA approval that medications did, none of them would be approved, because they don't have a high enough success rate. They actually have a really low success rate. Something like 90% of diets, quote unquote, fail. And if you zoom out and look at what happens over time, people will lose weight and then they'll stop the diet, because you can't eat perfectly forever. And also, when you're restricting, your body's hunger signals get louder and louder and louder and louder until you eat all the things. Um, and what happens is that we have this pendulum swing where our body feels like we have to eat. So our actual hunger signals, our feeling of appetite increases, as well as hormones like ghrelin that actually physically increase our appetite for something like a year afterwards. For some people, it's longer. Also, our desire for food and our obsession about food increases. And this was actually shown in a study as long ago as the 40s, where they required men who were conscious objectors of the war and didn't go to war. They required them to be on a 1,700 calorie a day diet for a period, I think it was 6 months. And the men got so obsessed with food that they were collecting recipes and cookbooks, and they would talk about food all the time. And all of the men ate an extreme amount of calories when they went off of the diet. Some of them were eating up to 10,000 calories a day. So, and this is only restricting to 1,700 calories. So how many of you have been on a diet where you were told to restrict to 1,500 or 1,200? I recently worked with someone who was told to restrict down to 600 calories a day. And of course, she lost a tremendous amount of weight, and then she went off the diet and gained it all plus. And that's what happens, is that we go off the diet because our body is telling us we need to, and then we eat everything. We have all of the shame, but really our body is trying to make sure that we're not in that famine phase anymore. So diets simply don't work. They don't work. And unfortunately, because we're told that we don't have the willpower, that it's our fault, then we have all of the shame and blame towards ourselves, versus the realization or the recognition that diets don't work, and the science is there that shows it and proves it. So we want to get away from dieting, but then how do we manage our relationship with food, right? Because a lot of times when we take away the diet mentality, we then have this pendulum swing where we eat everything and it feels really out of control. It doesn't feel good. So that's where intuitive eating comes in, right? Regaining that attunement or awareness of what's going on in our body and honoring it, building trust with our body so that we can have that balance and freedom and ease in our relationship with food. So as you can tell, I'm really passionate about intuitive eating. I really believe that it is the only healthy, sustainable way for people who don't already have that attunement to really heal their relationship with food and to really change the way that we connect with food and use food in our life. And so, I recognize that this is something that isn't easy to do because when you're used to a should and shouldn't around eating, it can feel very kind of nebulous and wide open. It can feel a little uncomfortable. So that's why I do the work that I do. I help people to shift and work toward that healed relationship with food in a way that feels, where we have a container and we could take baby steps. I help people to remember to remove judgment. A lot of times, I'll meet with a client and then they'll come back to meet with me a couple of weeks later and they'll be like, oh, I ate all the things. I had a client recently who was keeping track of what she was eating, not in terms of the weight or anything, but just listing out the items that she was eating so that we could start to discern some patterns for her. And this isn't for everyone. If it's a trigger, if it may trigger some people, so I don't recommend it for everyone. But for her, she was at a place where she wanted to just have some awareness of what she was eating and when. So, on a stressful day, was she eating more carbs? When she got less sleep, was she more triggered to eat like all the bagels? Different things like that. Anyway, so she had been eating a lot of vegetables and, kind of eating in a way that felt good to her. And then one day she ate more treats, more fun food, play food. And what we noticed is almost every single one was a pumpkin thing. And so I was like, well, you're just really craving pumpkin. And it's fall, and it's fun to eat pumpkin at fall time. So allowing her to recognize, like, oh, I don't have to judge myself about that. I just wanted pumpkin, and it's okay. And I can have pumpkin if I want to, right? So she must have had a should around, like, oh, I shouldn't eat this pumpkin, scones or whatever it was. So, yeah. So then we had a laugh about the pumpkin tortilla chips not looking appealing. They don't look appealing to me at all either. So that's kind of why we want to move away from diet culture and restrictive eating, because it doesn't work and because it makes us feel bad about ourselves and it keeps us in a perpetual cycle, and why we want to move toward having a better relationship with food, right? Healing our relationship with food so that we can feel trust in our bodies. And the main reason that I do this work is because I personally had an experience with it, and it was so harmful for me to have all of that shame and blame around my relationship with food. And it made me yo-yo, right? My weight go up and down, up and down. Oh yeah, somebody's commenting so many shoulds and should not. Yeah, but what does that have to do with us, right? Like these shoulds are this kind of um, nebulous one size fits all, and a lot of them are conflicting. So you shouldn't eat too much fat, but you should eat healthy fat. You shouldn't eat carbs, but you should, right? Like you should eat the right amount of carbs or the right kind of carbs. It's okay to eat root vegetables, but not honey. I don't know. Anyway, it's really amazing how many conflicting messages we get. And then we also get messages around whether a food is morally good or bad. Avocados are associated with the cartel, right? I mean, how do you navigate all of that and just feed ourselves and nourish ourselves? So that's one of the main reasons that I do it. The other reason I continue to do it and I'm passionate about it is I see how much mental and emotional weight this is causing the women in our society, especially, but also the men. All the weight that this is creating for us, like it's so heavy and it takes up so much of our energy. And I believe, especially now, we need people to lead. We need people to be standing in their brilliance. And that requires them to have trust in themselves. It requires them to have all of their mental and emotional energy available to do this kind of work. It requires them to have the stamina that they need by feeding and nourishing themselves well. And it requires them to have trust in their body and in themselves. So it requires this autonomy and feeling that and that satisfaction, feeling good about your relationship with food so that you're not held back by limiting beliefs and self-doubt, and you're not held back by that drain, that emotional drain. So I really want your magic and your brilliance and your ability to lead to be completely unencumbered, and I want that to be out in the world. I'm really passionate about the work. And I'm so thrilled to talk about my fall cohort, my fall program. I'm changing the title a little bit to Fall Coaching Hybrid Coaching Program because it is a blend between individual and group work. So the idea of a cohort is an academic term, and it basically means you go through a program at the same time. So my clients will all be going through the program at the same time. We will be meeting together twice a month-ish. It can be scheduled at the discretion of the client, but one-on-one we'll be meeting twice a month. So that's 12 sessions over a 6-month period. And then I'm going to have a group coaching call. That'll be Zoom or Skype. And that is going to have everyone together. So that'll be once a month. And then the other component of the one-on-one work will be a half-day intensive. So that half-day intensive is a time where we can really dig into the logistics of feeding yourself. So we'll look at ingredients, right? We'll look at what types of foods do you like? We'll look at menu planning, and we'll basically create a plan for how you're going to get food into your body. And we can either do that at the client's home if they want to do like a pantry clean out type style, or we can do it at my home and I can show you guys how to like cook some things, or we can just make that menu plan, and of course we'll look at ingredients and we'll look at some of my hacks, like what are some of the foods that I have in my pantry just to make sure I have what I need available, and what foods maybe have unexpected or sneaky ingredients in there, right? So like coconut milk, I make sure that I get one that doesn't have anything else in it. It's just a can of coconut milk. So things like that. And then we will, or we could even meet at a grocery store. So that's something we'll decide between ourselves. So that's the individual component to it. And then the group component or the cohort component, again, is the online coaching calls once a month and a meal once a quarter. I just got glitchy. So if you're on here live, can you just comment whether you can still hear and see me okay? Unfortunately, the internet is my best friend around here. So not seeing anyone comment yet. Fingers crossed. So the other piece of the group component is a meal together. And I really believe that having a meal together will be so wonderful in terms of community building and practicing skills. So one of the things that people run into when they're doing this work is, how do we have boundaries around talking about what we are and aren't eating? Talking to people about like that you don't want comments about your body or what's appropriate, setting boundaries around other people talking to you about your body and their bodies, body shaming, those sorts of things. So how do we do that? So we'll talk about that at our meal, and then we will enjoy a delicious celebratory meal. Nomesh Chef is going to help me out with that, and it's going to be like Thanksgiving style. Will be the first one in November. So we'll be doing this Thanksgiving style meal, but it'll be kind of my healthy-ish take on a celebratory meal, and again, delicious. And so we'll just enjoy each other's company, discuss how to navigate the holiday season, and kind of stay centered in our new skills and have boundaries around our family. All right, so I think somebody is still on. Can you tell me if you can hear me okay? Because I know I got glitchy for a minute there. All right, so that's going to be the components of the program, and what you will receive from the program after working with me for 6 months. You will have a shift from the shoulds and should nots and diet culture into that freedom and balance in your relationship with food. So you'll have a solid set of skills that you can continue to use, because healing our relationship with food is an ongoing process, but you will be at the point where you know in general what's working for you, what's not, and how to incorporate that attunement into your, that body awareness into your day-to-day relationship with food, and you'll have a plan for how to actually get yourself fed. And we'll have been practicing that for a while. So it's like the mindset shift and the actual practice of feeding ourselves well and experiencing a variety of situations over the 6 months, right? So this 6 months will include the holidays, and it will include post-holiday. So all of the like, oh, we're going to get healthy again, and how to not get into the trap of doing the diets when it's the new year. And then, going into spring a little bit and looking at, oh, now that the seasons are changing, Are my food desires changing? Maybe you're going to go on vacation during that time. So what does eating intuitively look like when I'm home on a regular basis and working and doing my normal thing? And what does it look like when I'm on vacation? So for some people, it looks like a percentage, right? Like maybe 80-20 rule when you're home. So eating, quality food like 80% of the time-ish, and play food maybe 20% of the time-ish. And then when you go on vacation, maybe it's 70-30 or 60-40. Maybe you are having some health issues like some arthritis flare-ups, something like that. So then it might become 90-10, right? So you can kind of play with that as your needs change. And again, that's towards the end of the intuitive eating work, so we don't start out with that. At first, we start out at looking at our mindset around food and shoulds and should nots. So that's the program in a nutshell. The pricing is $3.95 a month. And this is really a beta program, and so the pricing will probably go up. I plan to have a fall cohort and a spring cohort every year. So the pricing right now, this is the lowest it'll be. I'm trying to include as much value as I can into the program because I really want people to be supported and have their needs met. One thing I failed to mention is that I am available between sessions as well. So if someone needs to, access me because maybe something has come up that they didn't expect, or they ate a whole box of cookies and they're kind of feeling shameful about it, or whatever it is, I'm available for that because I know how challenging it is to do this work alone, as I did. And I know that having support in it can be really helpful in just um, reminding people, like, let's let go of that judgment and that shame. And instead, let's focus on what are we learning? What was the experience? What did we gain from that experience? So if you ate the whole box of cookies, how did that feel? What led up to that situation? Maybe you didn't eat all day and then you went home and ate a whole box of cookies because you were actually really hungry. Or maybe you did eat plenty all day and you went home and there was a box of cookies and you ate them. Was it because it was like the Girl Scout cookies that you love that you were never allowed to eat and you felt like you needed to be able to eat them? Or was it because maybe you were feeling emotional, or perhaps you're having pain in your body that was unaddressed and you're trying to treat your pain, right? So we look at letting go of judgment and honoring our body's signals and honoring our experiences and using that as a way to learn, to get connected to our bodies and to trust our bodies again. So I said on the page that I was going to have an exciting announcement. So I'm going to have a partial scholarship opportunity. And at this point, I've decided to do 2 scholarships half price. I guess exactly half price, I'm not sure, but it's going to be around $200 a month. And in order for people to apply for that scholarship, I'd like to have a 30-minute phone conversation. So that is an option on my You Can Book Me page. So I'll put that link in the comments. And basically what I want is when you go to do that, I want to know what is it that what's your main struggle with food, and why are you someone who would be a good fit